Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to this webinar today. Today's webinar will be on managing groups on protocolsio. My name is Anita Prolox and I'm the head of outreach here at protocolsio. And I'm excited to do this webinar with all of you today. I hope you're all staying safe and you're well in these times. Just before we get started, a couple notes. We are recording this webinar, so please just be aware of that if you're asking any questions. Regarding questions, the best way to ask questions is through the QA window. You should see a QA window on your Zoom interface, so please use that and we'll be able to get to any questions at the end of the webinar. Or if you prefer, you can also raise your hand if you want to speak. We can unmute you if you have any specific questions. So yeah, let's get started. Our agenda for today is, first, I'll give you a quick introduction to protocolsio. That includes just a general introduction. We'll look at what a group looks like and what kind of options you have for group visibility. And then I'll show you a little bit more specific about groups, how you can create a new group if you're thinking of setting up your own group, and how you manage things within the file manager. Next, we'll go into sharing. So how can you invite others to a group so they can see all the shared files, and how can you share files and protocols within a group. And in the end, we'll have a closing, and we have a lot of time for questions if you have any questions. So for those of you who might not know protocolsio yet, protocolsio is a platform for scientists or researchers to collaborate. We have the protocolsio really has two sides. One is we have an open access repository where researchers are sharing methods publicly. And then we also have the private side, so people can collaborate privately within their team. Yeah, and the platform really is structured in three different categories. One is we have our editor where you're entering protocols. So if you're actively contributing protocols, you would enter the protocols in the editor. Then next we have our file manager where really all your data and all your protocols are stored. And then we have groups. And today's webinar will be focused mainly on the file manager and groups. Groups are really a great space for teams or classes or bigger consortiums, really for like any kind of, every time you have like multiple people working on one subject, a group is a great way to stay connected and collaborate. In a group, you can share files, and also if you're using it for like a team, for example, in a lab, you can have a shared region library. You can share protocols, of course, with the team, and everything is secure. So any file that you share in the group is also, it's very secure, so you can use it as really a file sharing tool. And we do have on the side, we have individual and group commenting features. So you can really, all the content that is in a group can be discussed and it can be improved and optimized, and the collaboration can really happen there in the group. And another great thing about groups is that if you do have a group, it keeps all team members up to date with the newest versions of protocols, because twice a week we send out digest emails. So if there's any new protocols that have been added to the group or things like that, the group members will be notified about that. This is what a group profile looks like. So there's a couple of things that you can see here are going on. Like on the main page, we have like these different tabs. One is like a timeline tab where you just see all the things that's happening. And then there's like a description, and you can browse the publications. Publications can be sorted into different categories if you'd like to, and you can see the members, discussions, and a whole bunch of other things. So this is what it typically looks like. Please note that this is an example of a public group, and this brings me to my next point. Groups can be either visible or invisible. So for example, the Human Cell Atlas group that we just saw a second ago, it's a visible group. So that means anybody who comes to protocolsio and they type Human Cell Atlas in the search functionality, they will get this as a result. So they will be able to see the group profile. However, if you choose to make your group invisible, which you can see with like this little icon, then if somebody comes to protocols.io and they search for demo group, they will not be able to find my group. So only really the members, the people that I specifically want to invite to my group will be able to have access or see that group profile. So just keep in mind that there's these two options when you're setting up a group. And yeah, if you want to set up your own group, it's really easy. You have to create an account on protocols.io, and then you will see this button where it says new. So it's a little plus sign. And the same space where you can add a new protocol, the last point here, it says new group. So you would just click on new group, and then that will bring you to this page where you can enter all the initial details for your group. So first thing, you should give your group a name. And yeah, the name can be whatever the team is called. You can pick a name. And then second, we will automatically generate a link for your group. You can edit it if you need to, but just you can double check to make sure the link makes sense. And if you want to, you can modify it, but usually it should be okay. And then you should add an image for your group. So if you have any logo that your group identifies with, you can add it, or anything else. You can add it here. And then the next step is to add a little bit of like interest and purpose for your group. So what is your group doing? This is especially useful if you do decide to make a visible group. And you can also have like keywords to just describe the interests of your group on top of the text. And then you can add some additional group details. So if you have like a Teams page somewhere else already, you can link out to that. And if you'd like, you can put like a location if you do have a physical location, and like an affiliation if you're affiliated with any university or something like that. You can do that here. And then the next part is for technical support. You can add technical support details here. This is of course optional, but if you are a vendor or you have any other technical support, you can make use of that functionality. Next is here's where you choose what I mentioned earlier, if your group should be visible or invisible. So you have the options. If you choose it to be visible, you have 3 different membership options. So you can either make it open to all by request or by invitation only. If you make it open to all, everybody who comes to the group profile will see a button that just says join. So they could just click join and they can be a member of the group. If you have it by request, there will be a button that says request to join. So they can request to join and then the group admins will have to approve it. Or it can be by invitation only. So that means only the people who you specifically invite will be able to join the group. If you choose it to be invisible, of course, you only have the last option because people won't be able to find your group profile. And then every group comes with a special folder. We call it the group folder, but I'll say a little bit more about that in a bit. But the group folder is really where everything happens. So all the files will be shared there and everything is shared. And the group admin has special setting options for that group folder. So for example, you could have an option that says, I don't want any files to be ever removed from a group folder. So that means if somebody is in your team and they do some work and then maybe for some reason one day they leave, then the work doesn't leave with them, right? But I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that's basically the initial things you have to do to set up your group. Then you just click create and then you have your group set up. So this is my group profile. Yeah, and if you want to add members to a group, you have multiple options. One, you can click the same edit group button as where we were entering the details right now, and you can see an invitation link if you had it by invitation only. So if you copy that link, anybody who's having the link will be able to join the group. Or another option is if you click the Manage Members button, there's an option that says Invite People. And if you click the Invite People button, you will have multiple options to invite people. So let's click on it. So you can either invite others by an email address. So if you know which email address they use to sign up on protocols.io, you can use that. So you can just click invite, or you also saw here that there's the option with the link as well. So you can have both options, whichever is more convenient. Next, to the file manager. The file manager is really where everything happens. Everything gets stored here. It supports any file type, so not only your protocols that you create on protocols.io are stored here, but also you can drop any other files in the file manager. So if you have any spreadsheets or PDFs or presentations or anything like that, you can drop it into the file manager. And in the file manager, we have, so if you look into your file manager, if you did create a group, you'll see a special group folder. So that is the file manager for your group. And we allow granular permissions for every file. You can easily in the file manager archive things, audit things, or export things. You can connect your protocols.io to Dropbox, OneDrive, Box, and more. So if you want to ever back up things, it's really easy to just back it up. And also we do have enterprise-grade security and backup functionality, as I mentioned. So all your files are really secure in like one central place. This is what the file manager looks like. And as I said here, you can also upload any other file. So you will see here are some protocols, but also I added like a spreadsheet, a Google document, an image. So there's really a lot of options, and you can, just like in any other file manager, you can create subfolders. So if you want to structure your folder with different sub-levels of organization, you can create different folders and for different projects, for example. For the group folder settings that I mentioned earlier, so if you're the group admin, you'll see this little icon up here, and this is where you set the settings for your group folder. So you'll see there's like a couple of options. You can just choose whichever work best for you. So for example, as I mentioned, you can prevent from moving files from outside the group. So that way you ensure that really everything stays within the group. Or if you don't want people to publish anything, you can also disable the ability to publish. So if you want to keep everything private and you don't even want the people to see the publish button on their protocols, if they're in the group, you can choose that option. Next, how to share a protocol with a group. So really there are 3 different options how you can share protocols with a group. And one is through the file manager. So you can either already create a protocol within a group, or if you have your protocol in your private files, you can easily just share with the group by dragging or dropping it into the group. Or if you click on it, you can say move to, and then move it into that. Or also if you create a protocol, and if you create a protocol, you'll notice a button that's just called share, and you'll have the option to also share it with a group from there. So there's a couple options how you can share the protocol with the group. But yeah, if you have it, for example, in your files, in your personal files, and you want to move it to a group, you would just click on the protocol. So first you go into the file manager, and then you click on the protocol. Here it's called protocol 1. And then you click on the move to button. So you can either find it here or on the right-hand side. And then it will give you an option to where you want to move it to, and you can just pick the group that you want to move it to, and then the protocol gets moved. So it's pretty straightforward. And then another last thing that I wanted to also say about the groups is, so the groups has a lot of functionalities on top of the things that I showed here. But one other little thing that I wanted to mention is that we recently introduced the task manager. So the task manager is really great if you are managing a bunch of people in your team and you want to have a nice overview of what everybody's doing. You can create tasks and you can track their progress on this side. So you can have like a calendar view or a list view and just like see what everybody in the lab is doing or in your team is doing. And then last, to the security, I already mentioned that protocols.io is very secure. The protocols stay in the group even if a group member leaves, if you enable that, that setting. And our security really is enterprise level, so we have an end-to-end encryption and a lot of security in the cloud. And we do make it very easy to back up and export data at any time. So as I mentioned, you can connect to Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, for example, to just get all your data out at any time. Or you can just download it to your computer if you want to. And you do have group level permissions for members. So if you have a lot of people in your group, you can give different permissions to different members. Yeah, and with that, I'm at the end, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any questions. So as I mentioned, please use the QA if you have any questions. Okay, somebody has a question, and the question says, I'll read it out loud. Can you tell us a bit more about version controlling with protocolsio? How can different members of a group make changes and save separate versions? That's a really good question. And yeah, so we do have version control on protocolsio. So when you create a protocol, at any time you can, so as long as it's private, you can always go in and make edits to it directly, but sometimes people might want to publish it, and at that time it becomes fixed. So that means you cannot go back and make any edits to it. And in that case, if you need to make any changes, you can always click the new version button, and you can create a new version of a protocol at any time. And the new version button is available for whoever the group owner is and the group admins. So, so it depends on who you made, or if you made an admin on the protocol. So not everybody from a group will be able to just make new versions of all the protocols that are in a group. You have to make the people that you want to be able to make new versions actually admins of it. But yeah, you can always create a new version, and then you can invite others to edit the protocol with you. We have concurrent editing on protocolsio, so you can edit the protocol together with others. And yeah, and the new versions, you don't have to make the protocols public to create a new version. You can also have it private, and then just for like your internal team, you can create new versions. So yeah. And then if you created new versions, you will see a little, under the thumbnail image of a protocol, you'll see a little drop-down menu, so you can navigate between the different versions of a protocol. And also we do have a compare button, so you can actually compare different versions with each other, so you can see what changed between version 1 and version 5, for example. Yeah, I hope this answers the question. And we have another question. It says, how many members can I add to a group? What is the maximum? Very good question. And there's no limit to how many members you can add to a group. As you saw the Human Cell Atlas group from the start, the public group, it had like almost 300 members. We have groups with like 500 members. You can also have a group with only 2 people if you're a small team, or 5 people. It really is up to you how many people you want to add, but there's no maximum. Any other questions? If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, that's also an option. And if not, I'll stay around for a couple more minutes if you have any more questions, or if you have any questions later, please feel free to always send me an email to anita@protocols.io, and I'll be happy to also answer questions over email. But thank you everybody for joining us today.